The sun was merciless, a burning eye fixed over endless dunes of gold. His lips were cracked, his skin blistered, and his heartbeat slowed to a fading drum inside his chest. When Sergeant Daniel Brooks fell to his knees in the middle of the Arizona desert, he believed that was where his story would end, swallowed by the same land he had once trained to conquer. But fate had other plans. When he opened his eyes again, there was a shadow above him, not death, but a woman. Her dark eyes were steady, her face half hidden by a shawl woven in crimson and black. He tried to speak, but his tongue stuck to the roof of his mouth. He could barely breathe. "Don't move," she said softly, her voice the calm against the roaring wind. "You are safe now." Chapter 1. The Crash. It had been 3 days since the helicopter went down. Daniel was the only one left alive after the Black Hawk had been ripped apart by a sandstorm. The mission was classified, an extraction gone wrong near the old Apache territories. The storm came without warning, swallowing the sky, twisting metal, and scattering men like dry leaves. He had crawled from the wreckage with a broken wrist, no radio, and a single canteen, empty within hours. The desert didn't forgive mistakes, and it didn't care about rank or mission. Every step forward had drained him. Every hour was a fight against hallucinations. He had seen mirages of rivers, shadows of men calling his name, and once, his mother smiling through the heat haze. When his knees finally gave out, he whispered a prayer. Not for rescue, but for peace. That was when she found him. Chapter 2. The Widow of the Desert. Her name was Nita. She lived alone on the outskirts of an abandoned Apache reservation, a widow whose husband had been taken by the same desert years ago. Her home was a mud-walled shelter surrounded by dying cactus and silence. She didn't expect company. When she saw the soldier lying half buried in sand, she thought he was already dead. But something made her check, a twitch of a finger, a shallow breath. She dragged him inside, whispering to the spirits to forgive her for bringing an outsider into sacred land. For days, Daniel drifted between fever and dreams. He remembered only fragments. Her hands cooling his forehead with wet cloths, the sound of water dripping from a clay jar, and her low chanting at night. But there was no food, no medicine, no clean water left. The desert had cut them off. Chapter 3. The Choice. By the 4th day, Daniel's body was failing. He hadn't eaten in nearly a week, and the heat had turned his lips blue. Nita searched the land for roots and cactus fruit, but even the snakes had vanished. That evening, she sat beside him, tears glistening in her tired eyes. He was young, no older than 30, with scars that spoke of battles beyond this desert. She saw the dog tags around his neck, his cracked lips trying to form words. "Don't leave me," he whispered. She brushed his cheek gently. "I won't." It was then she made a choice only a mother's heart could make. Her body still carried milk, faint remnants of a child she had lost years ago. It was the last thing she could give, the final act of life in a place built for death. That night, under the silver desert moon, she saved him in the most human way possible, by offering him what little her body could still create. And it kept him alive. Chapter 4. Between Life and Memory. Days blurred into one another. Daniel slowly regained strength. His wounds began to close, and the fever receded. Every time he opened his eyes, Nita was there, silent, patient, watching over him as if guarding something sacred. He tried to thank her, but she always shook her head. "The desert took too much from me," she said. "If I can save one life, maybe the spirits will let me rest." When he was finally strong enough to stand, he saw the world through her eyes. The dry land, the forgotten graves, the traces of a people erased by time. Nita told him stories by the fire, of her husband who went to war and never returned, of a son who died in his sleep, and of the silence that became her only companion. Daniel listened with tears burning behind his eyes. For the first time, he understood that survival wasn't just about strength, it was about compassion. Chapter 5. The Storm Returns. One night, the winds began to howl again, the same kind of storm that had brought Daniel down. The sky turned red, and the air filled with grit. "We must go," Nita cried, covering her face with a shawl. They ran toward a canyon where she had once taken shelter. The storm tore across the land like a beast, breaking trees and burying everything in dust. Daniel shielded her with his body, but the winds were too strong. When it finally passed, the house was gone. Everything she had built, erased. She stared at the ruins, her face blank. Then she fell to her knees. Daniel put his arms around her. "You saved me. I'll get you out of here." Chapter 6. The Rescue. When the storm cleared, Daniel climbed the highest ridge and fired a flare, his last one. For hours, there was nothing but silence. Then, at sunset, a faint rumble echoed from the distance. A search drone appeared in the sky, scanning the desert with a beam of light. Within hours, a rescue chopper descended. The soldiers rushed to Daniel's side, but his first words were, "Help her first. She's the reason I'm alive." They took them both aboard. As the helicopter lifted off, Nita stared down at the land that had taken everything from her. Her husband, her home, her peace, and yet, she smiled faintly. For once, it had also given something back. Chapter 7. The Gift of Life. Weeks later, Daniel stood beside a hospital bed, holding Nita's fragile hand. She was weak, her health fading, but her eyes were bright with calm. "You will go home," she whispered. "You will live. That's enough for me." He shook his head, tears streaming down. "I owe you my life. You owe me a promise," she said softly. "Remember the ones this land forgot." Daniel kept that promise. When he returned to his base, he used his position to push for relief supplies and medical aid to the forgotten Apache communities. He told her story, not in military reports, but in human words that touched hearts. He called it the widow's gift.